So the first thing I do in editing this picture is correct any issues around any spots or any blemishes that might be around. So I'll press the plus icon on the layers panel, which will give us a new layer, and then if I zoom in and we're using this the navigator window. So when you're using the navigator window, I always tell everyone to use this because it's super easy to get around. So you can see that red box, you move it to where you want it to be, and you can just see what's happening. Just going to zoom right into her face, and we're going to correct some of the issues, like I don't like them there. So we're going to use a tool called the spot healing brush, or I just call it spot healing tool. So this tool, basically when you click on an area, it just samples the pixels around that one spot and generates, basically gets rid of that spot, if you get what I mean. So like that there, if I make it as small as I can, that works really well, and all you do is one click on it. So if you click it once, it disappears. Magic. The important thing I think you need to do is you need to make sure you've got all sample all layers clicked, and the other thing I always have is make sure that your brush is soft and not hard. So your hardness, if you look at the way that looks, that's going really soft. And if I pull it this way, see this circle here is solid. I wouldn't really want to do that, so I'm generally, when I'm doing it, I'm around 40, 144 there. That'll be absolutely fine. Click on there and it'll start to remove these. So I'm quickly going to go around the whole image, just taking stuff out that I don't like the look of. Just quickly use the navigator. Don't mind little hairs being out of the way there. There's a hair down here that I don't like. So if I want to get rid of a hair that's long, you just run the brush along it and then let go, and it does a really good job. Don't like this one here. Run all the way along. You'll see how this would work. I just missed a little bit. See, I've missed a little bit there, but that's done a really good job. Just run over that bit. Looks really good to me. Just running on this one here. This might be a problem because see, that was a problem. It's created, it's just really ruined that bit of chin. So if I just go to edit and undo the last thing, so we need to try and fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in even closer. And then we're going to try and resolve this. So see, I've gone in close. Now this isn't going to affect this part of her chin, so hopefully this is going to be a better job. So I'm going to run that down. We've got room on both sides, and stop there. See, that's left a line, but when you're out, no one's going to notice that line. And if you just keep running on here, and then let's do a little bit there. This might work. That's not too bad. And then I'm going to run across this one here. And then generally what I'll do for these ones, I'm going to rename this and call this spots. So they're spots. So I'm going to make a new layer, and this is going to be for the clone stamp, and I'm going to call this stamp. So this is going to stamp stuff. So you can see there's an area here that's a bit of a hair. So we're gonna now, and I don't know how well this is gonna go, but we'll give it a go. We're gonna clone this bit of her. We're gonna clone this bit of her face, and we use this stamp tool. So the clone stamp tool. Make sure you're on the correct layer, and we're gonna clone this bit of her face and bring it down. And it might work, might not. So what you do is you press Alt or and then you move along, and you can see where it's going to place it, and then we're just going to place it over and see if we can do an okay job of getting rid of that hair. Move that in a bit. It's not too bad. I'm just going to see if we can get rid of this bit. So we're cloning that bit, and we're going to move it along slightly. hopefully to hide that. That's not too bad. And then really going to go in closer here just to get rid of that one little bit of hair which is here, if you can see it. And again, when I'm making my brush bigger and smaller, I'm using the bracket keys on the keypad. So I'm just going to clone this area here and then move it up, and all the time I'm pressing Alt. I think it's the Apple sign on an Apple Mac if you're using Apple. And do you see that there? That's a bit of an issue as well. That's not going to be a problem using the clone stamp, so it's going to clone that bit. I'm going to say this, so I don't know if I said it before. So when you press Alt, you get the crosshair, but then you have to click the left mouse button to clone that area, and then you move it across to where you want, and then you click on that and it does it. Look at that. And that has just sorted out all the hair. So when you zoom out, people aren't going to notice that there's hair's been removed at all. It's done quite a good job of that, I think. So I'm just going to go around a little bit more really closely and just see if there's, and I'm only going to concentrate on her face. I'm going to go back to the spots and swap to the spot healing tool, which is there, and notice the what the icon looks like. And I'm just going to get rid of that on her head, a little bit of skin. Just examine this part of the cheek, what we didn't notice. Going to get rid of some of these hairs really quickly. A little bit of, looks like it looks like maybe some makeup that's on her face, and these little highlights, I think there might be highlights of the hair. What's happening there? No one's going to notice that. I'm actually going to undo that because I don't know how it's affected the hair, so I don't mind that being in there really. It's only a tiny thing. That can go, not like that, maybe that as well. Okay, right, so I won't dwell on that, but that's basically, oh, that is something I will correct. So to see this line, this is a hair that's running across, so I'm just going to run this along, and I'm going to zoom right in because it'll make my life easier. So making sure on spot heal, we're going to draw a line over that hair, and I'm not going to go all the way in because I think it'll make an error, so I'm just going to do that, and I think we'll probably get away with that. We'll go in a bit closer, so really kind of really see all the pixels now. It makes it quite difficult to see, but I'm just still going in slowly, just having a look at that, and I think that is not going to see that little hair there going out the frame. I'm not bothered about that at all, so that's looking good for me. Okay, right, so move on to the next part. So the next part is looking at Ashley's eyes. So we're going to bring her eyes to life. So what we're going to do now is, on the bottom of the layers panel, there's an option or a drawer you can open up. And the first thing we're going to look at is levels, and we're going to create a levels, and this will create the levels and also a mask as well. Now on the window above where you've got your navigator, you'll have properties as well, and in that properties window you will see this, which is the editor for levels. And if I turn this up like this, it's going to really crank up, and I'm going to push the middle slider right away up so it's like that. And then when we're on the the mask, which is this window here, we're going to press Control I, which will flick it to black, and when it's black it means you can't see what's happened, it's letting everything come through. And then when we're on the mask, you only get black and white in here, and then we need to select the brush tool. I call it the pen tool, but it is the brush tool. I'm using the brackets to make my the nib on my brush the right size for her eye. Going back into navigator because I want to really zoom in on her eyes, so I'm going to go right in, and I'm going to go in so I can see both of her eyes because we're going to do both of them. click on the layer mask. We're still on the pen tool. We want to be white, the opposite of black, and we're going to draw on top of her eyes and let all the light in. The other thing we have to be aware of is you've got this set to a soft brush, so don't make it hard brush, and make your opacity 100%. And then we're just going to rub out and basically cut through that mask to reveal what we've edited underneath, which is a very strong highlight or levels on her eyes. So her eyes are going to be almost overdone really. So that's it, very quick edit. And then going to go out, and it looks like she's a bit of a zombie, but when we click back onto here and we go to properties and we get this back up, when we bring this back down, suddenly we've got complete control of her eyes now. So it was in the middle there, quite dark, and we could just bump this up and get it looking a bit like what we'd want to see. I'm going to bring this one up as well, and then the great thing about this is you can click the eye next to it and have a look and see massive difference. So it's really dark in the original, we've brought some life to it, to her eyes. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to make her eyes have irises, pupils the middle, we're going to make her irises more vivid. So how we do that is we open our window up again on the layers panel, and we're going to go to saturation, and we're going to click colorize. And what I suggest you do is you make her eyes a really unusual color, like green would work, and you really push it up, make it overdo it really. And this is just so you can see what you're doing. Basically you're going to go through the same process again. So actually going to label these because I've not labeled them, so we'll call these, that one we just done, eyes, and then we'll do this one as eye color. Okay, so exactly the same process we did in the levels we're going to do with this this looking at the color. So we're going to press Control I on a PC, and I think it's the Apple I on a Mac. And then if we go to the navigator again, zoom in on her eyes, so we've got both eyes on the screen, that's looking pretty good. Let's go back a tiny bit, and then we go back to properties. Well, actually we don't have to do that, but if we click on here, and then we've got the pen tool already selected, I'm actually going to go in a bit more. We'll go in a little bit more, and the closer in you get, it just means you've got more scope for what you're going to do. Now you don't want to draw onto the white, so any reflections, the catch lights, you don't want to draw on there, but you do want to draw on the colour of her eyes. So you can see now why I've selected a really garish colour. That's completely different because you can actually see exactly where you're going to be painting, which is really important. And I'm going to come all the way around here and go in like that. Now if you get used to doing this and you want to get fancy, you can actually do more than one colour, because some people's eyes aren't all the same colour. And I'll show you this in the next eye when we go back. So I'm just going to go there and just come around a little bit. Really try to keep that round shape. That'll do. I'm just going a little bit on here. I think that'll do as well. That'll be fine. And then if we look on this eye, can you see there's lots of colours? You've got a darker colour here, you've got like a grey, and then around the iris there's like a brown as well. So if you really wanted to, you could do each part of them if you really wanted to. So and I do sometimes do that. So I'm just going to go in there. If you get something wrong, you press X, and it'll toggle between them two states. So X is changing the colours. So if I go to black, I've made a mistake here, and I now paint on here, I can reverse the mistake. So I've gone back to white. And the whole point of using this method is so that your images aren't being disrupted. There's the original, we're just putting layers on top of each other. Now I think that's okay, looking good. Pull out and you'll think, what on earth does she look like? But here's where the magic comes. So if I change the opacity in here on this level, so if I change the opacity and bring it down, the bottom colours start to come through. So you start to see the detail of her eye. See all the detail in her eye there? So that is now coming through rather than it being so garish. Drop it down even more. And now we're going to affect the colour of her eye. So instead of being on the mask, we click on here. And then if we go up to your selections here and we press properties, very important, you're on that box and in properties. Now we can change the colour of her eyes. So we can bring this slider along and make her eyes blue, because her eyes are like a bluey, I'm sure like a light blue. And then we'll bring this down and then we'll bring the saturation down as well. And then we're going to zoom out. So just go to navigator again, zoom out away from her eyes. And let's see what we've got. So we're just going to edit this from distance just to get an idea. Now every time I do an edit, I always say this about Photoshop, is if you do it subtly without people knowing, then it works. But if you do it heavily, it can have an effect what you don't want. So I'm going to bring the opacity down here, and then I'm going to switch on and off. So see how subtle that blue is. I'm going to push it maybe a little bit harder. So I'll push the opacity to 20, click off, and it's just a hint, and it makes it look, you know, that's the colour of her eyes, and I've just brought them out a tiny bit. I've just made them pop a little. So the next thing we're going to do, so we've done eye levels, so we've increased our eye levels and we've increased our eye colour. The next thing we're going to do is look at these wet areas, and for that we're just going to make a single layer by clicking the plus sign, and then we're going to go over to here. We've got the pen tool already marked and we've got white, which is what we want, and then we're going to zoom in on her face and we're going to go to her eyes and we're going to draw on the catch lights and any bits like these here, so any areas on her face that are wet basically. So we're on there, just making sure this is all correct, and we're going to just draw straight on the top, being careful. We're going to go in even closer, so right in here I'm just going to go out to them dots, that's good, and we're just going to draw over there really nicely, clicking on, using your mouse to just do the drawing. Go on this bit here, just draw that on there. There's a little bit here as well, them bits, that's looking good. I'll do that as well, that's looking good there. And then when you get really close in, you can do the edit really nicely, as in you can draw it precisely, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to go around that, draw on there as well, draw on that bit. Changing my size of the brush using the brackets, I'm just going to draw on these bits here, making sure you don't get rid of some of these lines in here because they are details that you'll want to keep. And then we're going to go on here. See, there's a reflection of her eyelashes. Actually doesn't massively matter if you went over the top of them, and I'll show you in a minute why. So you could just block all of that out, making sure we got the point. That's looking good. I'm not going to do that line there, that's looking okay for me. The other thing I'm going to do is a lips, so we're going to do a teeth. These are little shines on her teeth. Move around there like that, and then making the brush a little bit bigger. That's good, that's good. And then we're just going to go on all these wet areas of her lips. Run on these a little bit, leave them bits. I'm just going to do like the brighter areas here. And when you're doing it in your own time, you can really you can really spend a lot of time doing all of this. I'm trying to do it fairly quickly. Let's do this next one here like that. It's good. Make sure I'm not going too over the top. And it does look over the top when you're looking at it now. We do these little lines because these will look great, these bits. These little lines like that. That bit will look good as well. It's good. And whatever your image, you could be editing another image where it's just got highlights. It could be a car or anything like that, and you can use this same technique. Right, so if we look at this picture now. So her eyes are all it looks like someone's drawn paint on her lips. And then what we're going to do now is drop the opacity right down. You're dropping that opacity right down, and then we're all the time keep flicking this on and off, this eye next to your layer. I'm going to bring it back up because it's not having a massive effect. Now you can start to see at about 25 going to 35, and you can see it now. Look at that. But when we go into the image, it's not lost any of the detail. So look at them eyelashes. Remember we went over them eyelashes, but they're now still coming through. Click on and off. It's just a little boost, that's all. Nice little boost. Right, so they look good. The next thing we're going to do, so we've done eye colour, we've done that, is we're going to do a dodge and burn. So we're going to dodge and burn, and we're just going to do her face. So we're going to do a dodge and burn on her face, and I'll just show you how I go about doing that. I'm just going to label this. I have a habit of not labeling things, so I'm just going to put wet, so we know they're wet areas. So how I do dodge and burn is I make 2 layers. We'll call one burn, and this is like the dodge and burn that they used to do in the dark room when they were using film. So the burn, we're going to make some adjustments here. So we're going to change this to soft light, and we're going to change the opacity of our brush. We're going to change that to 7. So it's really a light brush. It's not going to be heavy, and that just allows you to be able to draw on it without making big lines and making it look a mess. And then if we do all this together, I think it'll be helpful. So that's the burn sorted out. The next layer, we're going to call this dodge. And we're going to do exactly the same. We're going to make this soft light in here, and then our opacity is at 7. So that's all good. The other thing we need to do, which I didn't do, was make the image black and white. So if we go into this drawer again and we choose black and white, so that's made the image black and white. And if we pull this down, so these layers can be moved around in order. So if you just pull this down, so it's in between wet and burn, so it's dropped in there, then we can do our adjustments over the top, and this can be toggled off and on. So we will go into burn now, making sure we're on the pen tool. Use the brackets because it was too small. So if ever, I'm going to say this because I found that when we were doing the workshop, people were getting lost with it. So if you're writing and your pen tool's bigger than the screen, you get a crosshair like that. And the opposite happens if your pen tool is too small. Watch this. I'll make the image bigger. Hold on. If it's too small, you get a crosshair as well. So long as you're on the pen tool and you're in the right thing, if it's like that, you just need to make it bigger or smaller. So I've seen a few people saying, where's my pen gone? But it was just because you needed to make the brush bigger, that was all. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is make sure burn is black. So I'm pressing X, which changes it to black on these palettes. and then we're going to draw in the darker areas of Ashley's face. So I'm going to start off with her eyes. I always like to start with eyes. So we're going to go in and work on this first eye. And what I'm going to look at is this dark area of the actual eye here. And I'm just going to draw on it like that. Go round there. Make my brush bigger because I'm going to draw right in her iris like that. Draw in this area here, and it doesn't matter if it's going over into the white because it is going dark there. Going to go in this bit here as well, darken that off. Just go round that bit as well. That's good. Go around the underneath of her eye as well, like that. That's good to me. And then I'm just slowly working around. Do a bit of a, and then come into a nose. This is a darker area than here, so just run a little bit there. Go on a nose. This is quite a dark area. This is really dark. Just run around that. The shape of a nose. A nose has got a kind of a different inset there. The inside of a nose like that here, around there, and a lip has a little inlay there which is dealt with quite well. The line of the outside of a nose there, we could do a line on there to just bring that out. Moving on to her other eye now. So I've done that side of her face, which I feel like's come out quite well. Our iris now, I'm going to darken that down. Just do that a bit more. It's good. A bit there. You're basically just going round all of her eye, just making sure that you're working at a nice pace, but you're just taking your time. Moving over so we can see a bit more of her eye here. Just going around her eyes. You notice I'm not massively being dead strict with where I go, just as long as I cover the areas that's needed. Always go over like eyebrows because they're really important to stand out. Just going to look at her forehead now and think on her forehead, because it's going to be round, what areas are the darker areas. And obviously this is where the light's shining, but here we could just darken maybe a little bit down. I'm just clicking on that, not drawing massively, and then we're just going to look at what that's done. That it's subtle, but it works. Especially look at her here, that stands right out now. Just going to go down to her lips and then do a little edit on there, and then we'll move on to the white. So I'm going to go under here and draw around there and do under here, and then looks good. And then under here we've got a chin. Look at the chin goes there and it darkens up there. If at any point you make a mistake, all you have to do is get the rubber, which is here, the erase tool. Click on there, say I've done it wrong there, and it can be at 100% this, but make sure your brush is soft brush. And then if you just want to erase what you've done, you just go over the top of it and it just takes it away, and then you go back to your pencil and then start again drawing. So if you make a mistake, it's easy to just rub it out. Right, so I'm going to stop there with that. I'm going to switch to the dodge and I'm going to switch to white. So I've changed to white, make sure I'm on the pen tool again, and then I'm going to go into the white areas of her face now. So definitely her eyes, so I'm going to go in here, push that in. This bit here, the eyelid, I want to bring that out, and also the above part of her eyelid, I don't know what that's called, but that always has light shining from it. The triangle of her cheek, so I'm really going to brush into there. The line of her nose, bring that out a bit. That's it, bit of a nose. This bit of a nostril, that's always a key area. And then I always find there's a little bit of light that runs around the rim of a nose. Let's look at this next eye on the other side. Again, you've got that part of the area between her eyelashes and her eyebrow. A little bit of light on there. And then this is a really important part, the top of a lip with the lines of the top lip there. You want to really bring them out. Quite a defined area. And then, let's go back to where we were. And then we're just going to look at this area of the lips as well. And then these little areas like this bit here could be lightened up, a bit of a chin, that could be lightened up as well. And then let's again have a look at that. And then click on and off. So you can really see what that's done to the image. That was before, and that's when we do the edit. And if I turn the black and white off so we can see the actual colour, you can see how it's working. The dodging, that's the burn, added a bit more darkness to it, and then the dodge just subtly brings stuff out. I actually feel like this is too bright for me, so I'm actually going to go into hue and saturation, and I'm just going to drop the saturation down a little bit to there. That's more like what I like, I think. So I've just dropped the saturation down a little, and we're coming to final areas now. So what I'm going to do on here is, I don't like this area, I don't mind that at all, but I don't like this lightness here. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to switch this to black. I'm going to make the image smaller. So I'm going to make this smaller like that. Make my brush really big by using the brackets, so making it to be about that size. And basically I'm going to vignette, I'm going to darken these areas down so it looks more pleasing. So you've got this light coming in, but it's affecting the background. And I'm going to change my opacity of the brush. I'm going to change that to 10. Oh, actually I'm going to change it to 15. And we're basically just going to touch on it. So I'm going to just one click of the mouse in the corner, and because it's on a soft brush, it's making the center of it dark and the edges lightening up. So I'm just going to do that until I'm quite pleased with how it looks. And then again, that's what it was like, and I've just darkened that down. So really now, instead of looking at that highlight, you're looking at her face, which is the most highlighted part of the image. And then the last thing I'm going to do is change the colours. So we did do this in the workshop in the other video, or in the other part. So we go into colour lookup, which is in that drawer of tools, and we're going to go to lookup. And the important thing with this is your opacity. If you have that set to say 30, it won't be over the top. And then you drop your drawer down, and I just flick through the different like LUTs, if you want to call them, and I'm looking through to see which one I like. So I'm just going to click through them, quite like that. That looks quite nice. Candlelight, not really keen on that. That one, making it a little bit dark. Drop the blues, making it like olive looking. That's quite nice as well. Foggy night, I do like that, but I'm gonna go back to this one. So I like this candlelight, and then we can play around with the opacity. And I also suggest, maybe because this has affected the light, that maybe you make a layer with a levels on it. So this levels is an overall level, so you can change how bright the image is. I'm just going to bring this up a little bit more, and I'm just balancing this with this colour. So these two are the last bits really. to get it right. So when I have this candle light on, it's making the image darker. So I just want to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm just playing around with the opacity of this candle light, just to see what it's like. But when I click on that, so I've made it a bit darker, I've lightened it up, but that's what it was like before. It's a subtle adjustment, but I quite like that. So I'm just going to make this zoom in a little bit more, and that is basically it. I mean, I've only gone through, I've not done the whole image, I've only focused on her face, but that was pretty much what we did on the workshop. We ran through the different ways of doing things. So just running through my flow again before I finish is opening the image up in RAW editor, doing the parameters in the RAW, then I sort out the stop spots or any blemishes, hairs that are out of the way. And the way that I do that is use the spot healing tool, which is there, and I also use the cloning, the stamp tool, and that's just to copy one area and put it to another. Works really well on edges like the edge of her face. Then we focused on her eyes, and we changed they made their eyes brighter because they were quite dark, if I can, like that. This one changed her eye color, so it's probably being taken away with this look that we put on. So we changed the color of her eyes, and then we also made her lips a little bit wet, a bit more, it stood out a little bit more, again very subtle. Then we did a dodge and burn where we darkened certain areas with a burn and we lightened other areas with a dodge. And then the last thing we've done is desaturated it a little bit on this one, made the corner vignette out so it's not so garish, so that was really bright, I found, and I found it made your eye go to there. And then we used a color lookup just to add an olive kind of look to the background, and we boosted it just because I felt like it dropped the colors down, the levels down. So we've just done an overall levels adjustment to make it brighter. I hope that's covered everything and it's easy to follow. If anyone has any questions, just contact me, send me an email,